On this episode, you're going to hear how our guest today, Tyrell, made $35,000 on his first deal. One really cool thing about him is that he's very selective about what appointments he goes on. He goes through a little bit of a process to determine how actually interested the sellers are in making a deal, and then he goes on their appointment. My name is Ryan Haywood, and back in 2019, I started a 30-day wholesaling challenge. I got my first deal done in 14 days, making $8,500, and since then, I've done over 450 transactions.
And my name is David Lecco. I created the software DealMachine that's helped people get their very first real estate wholesale deal over 10,000 times in all 50 states. And I think this episode is a great lesson for beginners because it can prevent you from wasting a lot of time or feeling like you didn't really say the right thing, because our guest has a framework. And really the end of the day is, if they're not motivated to sell, that's okay. Let's move on and continue looking for somebody who is willing to sell. So we're not trying to force a deal, but we're just trying to find a deal. All right, cool. So Tyrell, how much did you make on your first wholesale deal?
First wholesale deal, I think I made like $35,000 on it. And it all started with me finding a seller, negotiating the price. And, I had no intentions of wholesaling it. It was really a property that I was looking to buy for myself. I had a friend that wanted to do breakfast. Maybe he knew something about it that I didn't know that he knew. But we had breakfast. I told him about the property I was going to buy, and he begged me to buy it. He begged me for about 2 or 3 days. And I said, okay, finally, I'll sell it to you. So he's actually a wholesaler himself. So he kind of walked me through the process on how to do it, even though I had, a lot of knowledge. Some knowledge myself of how to do it. It was just great to work with someone that does it all the time. So that's how he ended up buying it. And he couldn't believe how much I got it for. After we closed on it, he obviously went to the public records, PVA records, and said, I can't believe you got it for that price. I didn't know that your profit margin was going to be that much.
Wow. Holy cow. Okay. So you're saying that you had a family member or friend that actually has been real estate investing?
Yeah. And actually, it's a friend that's actually a wholesaler. He's a successful wholesaler. Luckily, I found this deal before he found it, but he already owned properties on this street. And after we had breakfast, and I told him the property I was going to buy, that's when he begged me to buy it, and then that's when I sold it to him.
Got it. All right. So how did you end up finding this property in the first place? Was it driving for dollars? Did you pull a list of people that were going through probates?
Actually, it was kind of driving for dollars, but when I drive for dollars, obviously I use DealMachine. And obviously, I use DealMachine because the instant information that I can get on the seller about the property, how to contact them, what's the best source to contact them, best way. So I end up doing that, and I think he was about to list it, and then I end up talking to him and kind of giving him his price, and then it just went from there for me, wanting to close on it myself and it being a buy and hold. And then after having breakfast with my friend, it ended up turning into a wholesale deal.
Wow. Okay. So driving for dollars is when you look for a rundown house. Like, what are some things that you look for when you're out driving for dollars and found this one?
For me, in my market, which is Central Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, which is a beautiful place, right? Our inventory is low right now. Our inventory has always been low just because the way Lexington is set up, you have all these horse farms that are perfectly in the circle around Lexington. So it's really rare to see a house that's really abandoned, boarded up, or anything like that. So in my market, I look for like gutters falling off. I look for grass really high. I look for just broken up concrete on the porches, on the sidewalks. So in my market, that's kind of abandoned in my market when you just see just all the neglect on the property, on the, the curb, curb appeal. That's kind of when you see neglect, curb appeal in my market, that would kind of be my abandoned or highly distressed, and in a lot of neighboring markets to where I'm at.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So then you sent him a postcard, or you called him, or you knocked on the door.
The first contact, or the first way I tried to contact the seller was a postcard. It was DealMachine. He just called me and said, "Hey, I got your postcard. Reach back out. I think I might list it, but if I can't, it's the one gives me my price." So I end up, calling him back about a week later, and that's kind of what led to me getting it under contract, and then obviously at the end wholesaling it.
Got it. Okay, got it. So when you say, okay, you got it under contract, and you weren't buying it yourself, and you knew that from the get-go, right? But
right.
You got it under contract. How did you end up calculating what your offer could be?
How do I calculate what my offer could be?
Well, how did you back then? This was your first deal, right? A lot of people get uncomfortable not knowing if they're going to nail the price right or not. So obviously, I just kind of wanted you to break that down just for anyone listening, see if that can help them feel comfortable assessing some type of property.
For me, just to be simple, and also I just want to disclose that the seller I was working with is actually a real estate broker in the state of Kentucky, and I'm actually a licensed agent too in the state of Kentucky. But after we're kind of negotiating, the easiest way for me, especially on the wholesale deal, is to do. I want to be in purchase price plus my calculated rehab budget. I want it to be up to 80%. That way, I'm able to cash out refi with a lender, because most of my lenders at the time was going up to 80% loan to value. So I just needed some kind of some security in that way. And then how I found my wholesale price was just basically subtracting most of my rehab budget, and then went from there. So at the time, my friend, it was still worth him and maybe his numbers to still buy at that price after I basically sold to him, my purchase price, mine, and then minus or add in my rehab budget.
Got it. So how did you know the rehab budget?
Actually, I know the rehab budget because I also own a contracting construction company here in
all right,
too. So I know my numbers really well. I can just look at a property. I can probably run through a property within about 5 minutes and kind of be probably within about 5% of rehab budget, or what the actual rehab costs are, because I just do the numbers so many times.
What would you say, like, price per square foot would it cost for a house that needs a kitchen, bathrooms, and paint and floors?
In my market, you're probably looking at about $25 to $30 a square foot for all those.
Oh, that's pretty cheap.
Yeah,
that's pretty cheap. Cool. Yeah, no, that's kind of how I've kind of gone towards things anyway, because at the beginning I was very meticulous and very analytical. I wanted to nail it down exactly what it would cost. And the reality is there's just things that come up once you pull up the floor or open up the wall. And so that usually adds to the cost. So even as precise as you can make it, you're never going to know exactly anyway. So I actually just kind of went to kind of more rough estimating price per square foot, and then giving myself, a bit of a margin, knowing that might eat into that. And that's the risk reward that you get as an investor, right? Those who take the risk deserve the rewards. And so the person who's putting up the money to make that repair has to deal with the extra unexpected costs. But if they do it right and do it well, then you get rewarded for that. So I really like the business model of real estate because, I don't think it's actually too big of a risk if you just leave the margin of safety, get a little 20%, so that's great. And it goes to show you did that well, right? Because you made a decent chunk on the wholesaling fee. So you didn't even fix it up, right? But you calculated the price. And then how did you sell that property?
There's a local attorney that I work closely with, because I'm really a buy and hold investor, right? I do a lot of, if I sell, it's because I'm 1031 exchanging into bigger property or more properties. Just like recently I'm selling one property that I've had since 2020, and me selling that property is going to turn into 4 properties on the same day. So tomorrow I'll have 4 closings. Tomorrow I'll be selling one at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll have 3 closings back to back to back tomorrow afternoon. So that's just kind of where I'm at with it. And then I'll obviously now, after I had that success with the first wholesale, I always look for 3 exits, right? So I just look for I'm buy and hold, I'm wholesaling, or I can partner with somebody to make it work. So those are the 3 exits that I look for when I'm looking at a property.
So how do you end up finding that person who did buy that wholesale deal?
Really, word of mouth. I haven't got to a point where I'm reaching out to buyers that I research that are cash buyers in my market, or that I see that they've purchased a property on the street or neighborhood for cash. Really, I have a really good close network of friends and investors that if it's a good deal for me, then it's for sure a decent deal for them, and they'll go ahead and buy it if for whatever reason I have too many projects going on, or I just need the cash influx for something else.
Hey guys, if you want to quit your job in the next 3 months, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast, because we've got some incredible frameworks with step-by-step instruction that you're not going to want to miss. Also, leave us a rating and review to let us know your favorite parts and why you want to get financial freedom.
Man, that's so cool. I wish everybody could make $35,000 on their first deal. That's great. What did you do with that money as soon as you received it, right? You got the check at closing. What did you end up doing with that?
I try to reinvest. I try to probably reinvest 80% of it. So I had a project going on. It needed a new roof. I was going back and forth on it. And after a wholesale, they're like, well, I've got the money to do this new roof on this project and don't have to worry about it. And I think at the end, it'll be worth it. So I just kind of sprinkled it between, that project and other things. I was like, it would be one day, if I get some money, I'll put, some gutters on these properties, or I'll clean up, the concrete at this property. So basically I was able just to, to sprinkle that, those profits, across my portfolio, which really it gave back to me anyways. It was appreciation from the tenants. It makes it less work on the next tenant turnover, or if I decide to sell it, right? So I think every 3 or 4 years, I'm kind of cycling some of my portfolio, and I try to turn my 1s into 3 and 4s, and I try to turn a duplex, or some people call it 2-family, into a 4-plex or 8-plex, or turn an 8-plex into a small apartment complex. So every about 3 to 5 years, I kind of, there's about 4 or 5 properties that I'll be like, what, I wouldn't mind selling this so I can turn it into something bigger or something more.
Right. So you started out getting that first deal, driving for dollars, looking for rundown houses. Mm-hmm. And then now I know your team, you've made 1,700 calls in the last 2 weeks. So, that's about 300 calls per business day, or 200 calls per business day, mm-hmm. which is great. So you've kind of changed your approach, right? What type of people are you calling now? Like what type of list are you calling?
It's week by week, strategically based on kind of what's going on with me, or kind of what's going on in the market, right? Right now, lately, I've been targeting lots because there's not a lot of inventory in my market, and there's still not a lot of land to really buy. So I'm looking for vacant lots. That's probably people inherited, or they've held on to it for a while. And, at the same time, they're like, well, this lot has been beneficial to me up to this point. And, it's gone up in value since I've owned it. But, this is a good opportunity for me to sell it and get some cash for myself. So I've been really targeting lots. I've been targeting people that's probably owned their properties for more than 25, 30 years. Because I do a lot of I do a lot of creative finance deals. So I'm always looking to get creative with sellers and others just to make a deal work for them and also work for me. So right now I'm targeting lots, land that I can start building on, the next day. And I'm looking for, people that's owned the property, for 25, 30 years in their personal name. They don't need the money. They probably own it free and clear. And these are probably the same people that probably did seller finance deals themselves, right? I like working with people maybe in their 60s, 70s, because if you go back in the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of seller finance deals going on because the interest rates were, 15, 18%. So I love to hear someone say, oh yeah, I bought 3 houses on, rent to own or seller finance deals or land contracts. I love to hear when a conversation starts out like that because, it just makes it easier for me to make the deal happen.
Okay, got it. Yeah, for sure. All right, so you're calling people who own lots. You could filter that in a software. And is it you making the cold calls or is it your team? Because what was funny was I reached out to you and you was like, man, you guys are making all these calls with the dialer. We just launched it. And you're like, no, we're not. We don't use that. So like your team was making the calls, right? And you didn't know, I guess they changed softwares. So tell me about how your team works and how you work with them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my team is great. We weren't using DealMachine. Obviously, I found out they were because I'm the starter and then I'm the closer and then they're in between. So me as a starter, I have DealMachine. I set up the list. I assign the list. And then my callers, they start calling. And then if we get a hot or warm lead, then they send it over to me. That's part of their daily report. So a lot of times, only time I'm getting on DealMachine is to kind of, verify some information, dig a little deeper, and then obviously to start the list. So yeah, and then normally I get a daily report from my callers and, how many calls they made and what type of calls each call was. And if there was like a warm or hot lead, and then we just continue to do that, each and every week and just try to tweak things to get better. So that's kind of the plan that we're doing right now.
How many appointments do you typically get in a week?
A week? Right now I'm just doing one. And if I do one, then it's a really strong lead, and it's worth me going out there, and it's worth the seller, bringing me in because 9 out of 10 times we'll end up making a deal if I'm actually going out there. I try not to waste time. And if I'm going out there for an appointment, that lets me know that the seller doesn't want to waste time, and and I obviously don't want to waste time. So a lot of times we end up making things happen.
Yeah. How do you get to a point where that appointment is going to be worth your time? What are some symptoms or things that the seller will say that tells you this is worth my time?
When they actually give me a price, and whenever I have a price in my head and it's really close to their price, and when I think about the price they gave me, if that's their price, then it's probably maybe the worst case for me. So it's still a good deal. So even if I go there and I can't negotiate the price anymore, I'm probably still going to buy at their price.
Right. Do you typically get on the phone with them once it's what we would say is a qualified lead or a good lead? Do you get on the phone with them before you go to the appointment and feel them out a little bit more, or?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't have anybody, my callers, they don't make the appointments. They just give me all the details about, the call, and the call will let me know if it's a warm lead. And then after the phone call, it's I consider it a hot lead, and then I'm making the appointment, and then, 9 out of 10 times, hopefully the deal is done. So, yeah, a quick process of that.
That's awesome, Tyrell. So where do you want to go from here? It seems like you've got a good business going. You have people in the business that are making things happen for you so that you could be the starter and the closer. What's something or another milestone that you'd like to achieve or are looking forward to?
I think I like to get probably to, because I don't have any partners, like partners in my companies.
That's kind of nice. That's nice.
I wanted to finish out by saying I have financial partners, right? Which they benefit and I benefit, but they really don't make any decisions. I just lay the deal out and they're like, okay, I'll lend you the money on it. So those are my type of partners, but I have nobody to be like, hey, we should do this or hey, we should do that. So that's been great. And at the same time, sometimes I do wish I had a partner, but overall, I'm happy where I'm at. I think my first milestone will be to either get, I'll probably like the net, like after, mortgage, insurance, taxes, and then I set aside like CapEx and I set aside maintenance, right? After I do that, I would like to, net, $30,000 a month, which is, $1,000 a day. And that's just off my rentals, right? So that's kind of like my first milestone. I'm probably like, 55% there now. So I got like 45% to go. And I probably like to do that probably within the next 5 years. And then I'll figure out what my next milestone is. Right now, I'm at a good rate of gaining the right amount of properties that I want to get. Like I just did my first seller financing deal on a new construction property the other day. So that's pretty neat. It's a new construction property that I only got to do 7% down, and I'll rent for $2,100 a month, and my payment to the seller is going to be $1,200. So I've got a nice spread before I start subtracting insurance, taxes, and CapEx and maintenance, right? So that's a sweet deal. Like I think I read the numbers. I'll get like a 30 to 35% cash on cash return, on that deal with 7% down, making $350, $400 in cash flow a month. So I love those deals. I shoot for 15 to 18% cash on cash returns. Whenever, I'm buying a deal or evaluating a deal, that's kind of the returns I want. So
love it. Well, it's good to be clear on that, because then you can easily move through and evaluate things and not get hung up on deals that you feel like, I just really wish that'd work out. Just as a beginner, I mean, I did that for sure, just obsess over something, but it's better to just move on to the next thing if it doesn't fit your box there. So Tyrell, I just really appreciate your time today. And I was wondering, where on social media could people find you?
People can find me on Facebook. That's where I'm probably most available, and that's probably where both of my personal page and my business page is public. So the easiest way to find me is on my business page. All you gotta do is just go to Facebook and just type in Tyrell Hayden, real estate Bluegrass Property Exchange. I don't think there's too many Tyrell Haydens on there. Like you'll be able to find me because you'll see my name with real estate next to it, and I'm in the Central Kentucky market. If you want to be specific, I'm based out of Lexington, Kentucky. So
awesome. Thank you so much, and I hope you've got a really great rest of your day ahead of you. Appreciate your time with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you've done with DealMachine. It seems like you're finding ways, to improve the software, the app. So I just like the continuing of, trying to be better, trying to, provide more service.
Always. Yeah, absolutely. It's never done.
So I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.